listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creators in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creators across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley, and with me today is my good friend and Make It podcast co-host, Nicholas Buggs. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And this is an Indie Talk week, and that means I have my good friend and co-founder with me, Nicholas Buggs. Nick, say hello and explain your glasses.
He's like, explain. You must explain. Hello, what's up, folks? It's good to be here. As always, good to be hanging out with Chris. Yeah, I'm rocking the glasses today, man. Normally, I'm a contacts dude. But I will tell you something, and maybe this is, sharing too much, and I'm learning to share, folks, just so you know, like get it out there, put it out there in the world, maybe through sharing, you can help other people. So I've been dealing with like a crazy amount of fatigue lately. Like for the past couple of weeks, I'm like, I am dying. I'm like, I don't understand why I am so tired. Right. And I'm chugging caffeine more than I have ever chugged before. And it makes no sense. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. And then one day I'm sitting here with this fatigue, and I'm also feeling like my eyes are being strained. Right. Like something is happening with my eyes. And this week, I'm like, man, my eyes are feeling strained. I'm like, maybe it's the fatigue, right? You kind of put it all back. I'm just tired. You stay up late a bunch of nights, you're just tired. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lay down for a second. I'm going to take my contacts out, put my glasses in, right? Put my glasses on. So I do that. And within like 5 minutes, the fatigue is gone. So there's something going on with the contacts. Like they're straining my eyes so much that it's actually causing fatigue. And I've heard about this before, right? Like you're staring at a computer screen for too long, your eyes can get fatigued, you can get headaches, that kind of thing. And yes, I stare at a computer screen all day. That's like a normal thing now. But doing it without the contacts makes a huge difference. And now I'm like, all right, I need to abstain for a little while to see if this is legit. And yeah, it's a legit thing. I'm gonna have to go to the eye doctor and have a conversation like what's going on with these contacts that they're wearing me out. So I'm rocking the glasses, which is always my backup thing. I wear my glasses at night to give my eyes a rest, but I'm rocking them now, man, because these contacts are making me tired, bro. So
these pretzels are making me thirsty.
There you go.
Your contacts are making you. No, I don't have any pretzels, guys.
Yeah, right.
That's just a stupid Seinfeld line. But it's interesting because I've always heard that when you wear glasses or contacts, because your glasses and contacts are doing the work your eyeballs are supposed to be doing, your eyes do become weaker over time. And that could be the cause of this new fatigue, is that because you've worn contacts for a number of years now, your eyesight is actually getting slightly worse. So therefore the contacts are creating, they're not doing their job anymore.
It is possible. My prescription has remained the same. So that's why I'm kind of curious about what's going on, but I'm going to have this conversation with the eye doc. It's like, hey, what's going on? Because I can't be chugging crazy amounts of caffeine, trying to battle whatever this is. But, I think the glasses look pretty good. So I'll rock them for a little while longer.
I went to my doctor like 2 years ago. I mean, I've been back since. But
it's been a while.
I went 2 years ago, and I remember telling one of the assistants that I had blown my adrenal gland. I'd blown my adrenal on caffeine. Like I'm like, I've had so much caffeine that like, I don't think I can go back to that original feeling. It's like being a heroin addict, I guess.
No.
Softer.
I don't know what that's like, bro.
I shouldn't be comparing. Someone who beat heroin is going to be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
You're right. Like, no, it's not.
But it's like that first, I didn't drink coffee till I went to college at all, because I was an athlete, and like, athletes don't need the caffeine. We don't drink the coffee. It was like a whole culture thing. And then I went to college and I had a house, a family, 2 jobs, and I was taking between 12 and 18 credit hours per semester. And I was like, yo, it's going to be caffeine or it's going to be cocaine.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's either going to be black pride or white privilege. Which one is it going to be?
Nice.
So I went with that. Nice. I went with that black pride and got on that caffeine. But that first time you have a nice dose of coffee, you feel like you can do anything. It's such a strong, powerful effect if you haven't had it. And you spend the rest of your time drinking coffee, if you're drinking it to be awake, for that feeling, and it never comes back. So it's better for you just to get into really nice pour overs and enjoy the tones and textures and taste. Oh, I think I taste cherry in this. You know, I taste a little cocoa in this one. How about hints of caramel? You know, things like that. Blueberry. You need that because you're not going to get that feeling of being like super duper awake. Again, speaking of pour over, the drink for tonight, I've drinking some red wine to smooth things out. And tonight is the Arrington Vineyards Red Fox Red. So this is a red wine that is aged in bourbon barrels.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused. You said Red Fox, and I was like, oh, man, that's...
Late great. Yeah, red.
That's
people,
right.
People leave him out of the pantheon sometimes, the way that they leave Dick Gregory out. I'm not for it. He was incredible. So,
yes, for sure.
Red Fox Red. This is blend number 1819, and this eats. It drinks. It eats and drinks. It eats and drinks for you.
Right.
You don't need food when you have this.
No, it eats it for you.
You just have to have
flavor
this.
is infused in the wine.
I think people are going to be concerned that I'm spiraling down as an alcoholic. I can tell you, you might be right. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. And here's my thing. I'm just glad that your fatigue isn't long COVID.
Oh, yeah, man.
I know people are like suffering with that. I'm really glad that you're not deeply depressed because there can't be 2 of us.
That's right. Hey, dude, I will tell you, though, when you're fighting that kind of fatigue, just this is like for everybody out there. Like, you know, when you're fighting that kind of fatigue and it's just taking you down and you're drinking coffee to try to fix it, it's not fixing it. It'll take you into a weird headspace.
It really will.
Because it's frustrating. You know, it can be maddening at times because, you know, what that does is it creates a head fog. When you have head fog, you can't concentrate the way you normally would. You don't understand it, right? You don't realize that you're in a fog, right? Yeah. You just realize you can't concentrate. Like you're just like, what is happening? And then for me, I was spending more hours trying to get things done that I would have been able to get done in fewer hours, right? Because my focus wasn't there. So then I was staying up later, which was messing me up because now I'm actually tired, right? So yeah, but you talk about depression. I mean, it's legit that there's going to be some level of either stress or anxiety that you feel when you can't tackle the thing or you can't pinpoint the thing that's bothering you. So yeah, I've been in a weird headspace, but now I'm like, okay, I figured it out, which is what I always try to do. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm a detective myself out of this situation, but now I need the professionals to come in and fix it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get it fixed.
Heck yeah. We're both problem solvers in that way. And you're right. There's a point where once you realize you can fall asleep after having a lot of caffeine, for example, you've crossed a threshold.
Yep.
You've transcended the effect the caffeine's supposed to have. And there does come a point where, you know, I try to limit myself to 2 20-ounce cups of coffee a day. So these are large cups of coffee, but 2 per day. And I'm a guy who wakes up at 7 a.m. and works until 10, right, at night. So such is the life of an entrepreneur, right? So 2 big cups of coffee, I try to limit myself to that, but I find that I experience what you experience, which is 1, I shouldn't still be tired, but I am. And 2, like I can't focus. I can't get into that creative zone that you want to get into, that space, where you're just like knocking things out because random thoughts pop in your head. So you're like hammering away. You're in the zone. You're like knocking things out. And then for some reason you want to pick up your iPad. Why?
Yep, exactly.
Why?
You got it,
like
man.
Stay in the zone, but it's because the caffeine, the anxiety and stress, they're like pulling you in different directions, and you're not fully conscious of it because you're trying to put yourself in flow state, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I want to mention something with that real quick.
Yeah,
just for folks that, for one, our listeners who are always listening, one, we love you, but for them, and then for folks who might be listening to the podcast for the first time and are like, what are these guys talking about? Right. It's like caffeine and fatigue and all this stuff. And I just want to, real quick, jump in and just say, like, I know this is an indie film podcast, but one of the things that we are always focused on is the fact that filmmakers are people. Mm-hmm. Right. This is a human experience that we're going through. And by sharing these types of things, by opening up, by having these types of conversations, maybe there's something in there that will help the humans who are listening so they can be better at doing the creative. Yep. Right. So like, we don't have to beat you over the head every minute, every second with, film, every other word, trying to get the SEO up. Right. This is, hey, right. We're people, we're humans, but we're creatives in this industry, just like you. And who knows, it could be that, Chris shows you a wine, right? Or talks about a wine that you've never had before. And it's the greatest thing. And you bring some creatives over to taste this wonderful wine. And then you guys mind meld and there's some awesome stuff that comes out of it. It could be we're talking about fatigue and you realize you're having too much caffeine, or that's not the fatigue is caused by something else. All these things are just human elements to what we do. So just a quick note to the audience, letting them know, like, we're going to talk film. It's what we do. You're going to talk the industry. It's what we do. But we also talk human because that's what we are.
Yeah, it's a really important point. I don't think this person would mind if I said their name, but I'm not going to say it anyway. But had a long and wonderful conversation with a really prolific creative, and he's been locked away editing. And I'm so bad at editing. I was like, first of all, I admire you. Second of all, like, how do you keep yourself from getting too close to the material? He was saying, yeah, it gets crazy. You're locked away in this room. You're kind of missing out on the world a little bit. It can get to you. And what he does is he schedules walks in the neighborhood. So he'll have a little timer, and the timer goes off, gets up, takes a walk around the neighborhood, 20, 30 minutes, clears his head. And when he comes back, he's able to see what he couldn't see before, because
there you go. Yep. It's
a fascinating thing about being human. Like, if somebody plays you a song that's where someone is singing, for example, off key, if you hear it 10 times, it will no longer sound off key.
Right.
Your ear will make the adjustment to what it's hearing to make it right for you. That's what just intonation is about on the piano, where one of the secrets, if you will, for people who don't play piano or aren't musicians, they may not know, is that a piano is not in tune. It's always a couple of cents flat, or no, a couple cents sharp, I think, as you go up the keyboard. And that's called just intonation. And you can go into your digital workstation and then change the tone and tune of it. And that's how you can kind of make your stuff sound different than anybody else's too. It's like, oh, mine's actually in true tune versus just intonation. So that same thing happens in the edit bay, where you're editing, your TV show or your short film or your feature film, and you just cease to hear or see how that Foley takes you out of the scene, or this timing was like you stayed on that like, literally a second or two too long, right? So that just fits into that. Speaking of being human and being who we are, one thing I've noticed being in the indie film community is that I'm often sort of presented with, let's say I'm networking, okay? Yeah. I'm typically presented with other Black creatives, which is awesome. Yep. There's not a lot of them. It's awesome. But I do wonder why. I guess I know why.
Right.
But the other thing I've found is that it's the same people. So within this last weekend, I was at, I think 3 different parties, something like that. And, up to maybe the last 4 days. And the same person came up twice. Same Black person came up twice that works, that has a name in the industry. Mm-hmm. You need to meet so-and-so. Yeah. Then here's what's really crazy, Nick. Here's the craziest thing. I was like, oh, I will. Yeah. Hook that up. That whole thing. Like, let's set it up. Let's do the warm invite thing. I look at my phone. I have his number. I have his contact in my phone.
Yeah, because you got that intro before.
Yeah. So I already have it, and I just haven't. I guess I haven't leveraged it to everybody's desire and liking. But
or maybe you're doing this on purpose. You enjoy the game. How many times, just counting it, how many times will I be told about so-and-so?
About so-and-so, right. Because there is a thing about being like in the movie business and being a minority, specifically being Black. Because I think if you're in LA, like you're going to have Hispanic folks, you're going to have that a lot. Maybe not so much everywhere else, but certainly in New York and LA. But Black folks, there's a small basket, right? And we all get introduced to each other, and people have come up to me and you all the time and said, hey, you know how like rare you guys are? Like, you're 2 Black guys that own a film branding and marketing company and have executive produced 3 feature films. Like that's remarkable. And I really appreciate it. But I appreciate the love. I know you do too, but I get the sense that what's being implied is that we should leverage our Blackness a little more.
You got it. And that's, for me, it's like therein lies the rub. It's like, it's really interesting because, it's that idea of the card, right? The Black card, You play the Black card, you play the woman card, you play the LGBTQ plus card, you play the whatever card that maybe they put on the table for you, and whoever they are is whoever they are. And it's always been a hard one for me to play because I feel like who I am as a human, as a person, should precede all of that.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to present that first, like this podcast. I'm not presenting Black, right? I'm presenting, value to the independent filmmaking community. And I hope that people are seeing that and they're hearing that. Right. But there might be others who are seeing Black first. And if that's being seen in let's say a positive light, or even in a light that, hey, we should help these guys because maybe they haven't had the opportunities that they should have had, or the doors open that they should have had, and they want to reach out their hands to help because of that, I guess that's okay. It's just hard for me to lead with that. Right. Yeah. And I think that for filmmakers, I wonder sometimes, should they lead with it? Because I'm seeing it, all the time. I'm seeing these grants being made available, these funding sources being made available to uh, African American filmmakers, female filmmakers, Asian film. There's a kind of a pocket of funding for all of these folks. So in order for you to get access to those funds, well, you have to present yourself as the thing that they're trying to fund, right? So I gotta wave my hand and be like, hey, black filmmaker over here, it's like the thing that I don't want to do, but wouldn't I be foolish not to do it if they've got money, right, sitting there waiting for someone like me? It's Precisely. It's a crazy Precisely. Thing.
And I'm of the mind that the grant exists because there's a recognition that people in those groups don't get the opportunities that other groups do get, or majority groups get. I think that is why those grants and funds are there. Does it solve the problem? I don't know. I guess it's a wait and see. It's been happening a long time, so maybe there should be a referendum on the whole system. It probably has helped quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it bridges the gap. That's the idea.
Because I think at the end of the day, like, here's the question is if you get the money to make the thing you want to make, you still kind of have to cross the threshold of those decision makers that don't look like you, or potentially aren't the same sex as you, or whatever. Right. So It's like you still ran into the same blockade. You just took one step forward with being able to make what you wanted to make, but ultimately to make something again, you kind of need to, have, carte blanche to that majority potentially. And, for me, I know I'm going to face this in a really unique way and have already. I have 2 children who are biracial that present white, and I have one child who's biracial that presents black. And
that's right.
The one that presented black got all kinds of offers to top private schools for scholarships and things like that. She still had to test in and whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But there's an assumption that the other 2, they're not going to qualify. And then part of me is like, I should just remind these places that those 2 kids are biracial. And
yeah, you should.
Because broadly speaking, I view all of modern society as a game. It's all Dungeons and Dragons. It's all D&D, right? Or Risk, or, some strategy game where the player that plays their move the best kind of wins. But you still also have to have a style of play. I think when people hear me say that, they think that I'm a cynic, or think that I'm a guy who steps on the other guy to move higher up the rung on the ladder. But I don't want to play the game that way.
Right. Yeah.
That's all. And I'm willing to not, get to the top of the ladder if it means that I have to sort of sell my soul to do it, But there's just a way to play those cards where, you can win, without feeling dirty at the end of the day. The problem with the race card is when it's really explicitly used to hurt someone else. Right?
I would agree.
You're gonna get a job, or you're gonna get favor because you're this minority group, and you're gonna make sure everyone knows you're this minority group, and therefore the other person's gonna be shunned, bullied, made fun of, dunked on, asked out, whatever. Right. That's a tough one. The other card too, education card. If you graduate from an Ivy League school, or you go to Harvard Business or IE or Wharton, the question is, do you play the Harvard card? Because I've met a few Harvard MBAs, and I tell you what, that MBA came in the room before they did.
Right. So that's a great point, right? Because there's other cards that are played every day. Yeah, and they're played every day. So, and they're played for advantage, right?
Yeah.
Some level of advantage. And I think that, so again, for me, I don't lead with it, but I think that when someone is offering something, right, like one of these grants or, some sort of funding or access, whatever it is, and it's because of that card, and it's like, you got to go ahead and play it. I think they already recognize it, so maybe you don't have to actually play it, right? But sometimes you got to be in that conversation, and then just make sure that the talent, the value, and all that stuff is there to support it, right? I think if you play the card just because you got the card, that's not enough, right? That's where I think it actually hurts people. It hurts you. It hurts other people who are like you, right? And then it hurts the people who are trying to help you. So yeah, you definitely, if you're going to play the card, make sure that you've got the talent to back everything up.
Yeah. The tough thing about playing the card in groups is that it's so transparent. If you're in an interview or you're in a group setting or you're in a collaboration on a film, let's say, and you lead a sentence with "as a black man" or "as a black woman" or "as a whatever," I think there's a moment there where your next sentence better be something of great value. It better bring some tangible value to the table, right? Like maybe you have a story where the black character is being written incorrectly. Then I think you can say, you play that card. You say, right. So as a black guy, I grew up in this community. I got to say that, we just didn't, that's not accurate, right? That's cool. But to say it in a different context, to provide gain, or to say, you better be careful how you deal with me, talk with me, because I'm highly aware that I'm a minority group.
Right. There you go.
Right. It just puts everybody on edge, puts them back on their heels. You won't get your best creative out of it, no matter what.
Yep. I agree.
We spoke about this before too. It's this idea of like appropriation in film and in story. I think playing the card gets in the way of that too a little bit. Like if you're an Asian American, can you write a white story? Yeah. If you're a white person, can you write an Asian story? Feels like you got to be careful. But really, at the end of the day, you want to be able to write whatever you want to write creatively. Whatever's on your mind, as long as it's true to the story and true to you. The whole thing about the creative is it true? That's the whole thing. And you know it right away when you see it. Like when you watch something and a character says something, you're like, nah, I don't think somebody from France would say that. Or that wouldn't have came out of this character's mouth because he's a cold stone killer. Like, what's happening? Like, is this, so we try to connect the dots. Your brain, just like I talked about before with the music and like correcting the pitch, even though it's off pitch, so you can listen to it. Your brain does that with story. It's trying to just connect the dots in advance so that everything makes sense. And when you violate that for some external reason, your creative is, definitely going to suffer. I saw something this week that I thought was absolutely fascinating. And it speaks to where we are going. No, not where we're going, where we're at.
Yes, where we are right now.
But I don't think people know we're there because it's so subtle. It's so subtle. If you've ever been on Twitter for a while, for example, you always have to think twice or check people's profile or how many tweets and followers they have. It's not for clout. It's to make sure you're not getting into a debate with a bot. Because we already know, if you're on Twitter for a long time, you already know how good the AI is and how good these bots are at sounding human and having real looking profile pics, whatever it may be. And I think there's a lot of AI just beneath the surface actually sort of dictating how we use services, how certain software works, etc. So, for example, every self-driving car is based on AI data being fed to it in the billions of sort of data pieces. Pieces is probably the wrong terminology, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you.
So, enter a company named Kairos, just like the city. So Kairos. And I read some of their results from Legendary Pictures, who's one of their clients. And I'm sure anyone listening to this has watched a Legendary film. Well, what Legendary's been doing is using Kairos to track the facial expressions of the audience. And Kairos is able, through their AI engine, to track up to 500 different movements of a person's face in the audience per minute. And their pricing model is actually movements per minute. So I don't think it's very cheap, right? If you, I think it's a couple of $100 per, basically, depending on what level. You can have 100 movements, I think 250 movements or 500 movements.
Right. And
each one has its own price range, and that's per minute. And your movie's 90 minutes long, let's say. Maybe it's longer, and that adds up. But what you're going to have is absolute definitive information on where your story lags, where it's emotionally gripping, where everybody laughed, where everybody was sad, what people didn't like, because this AI can pick up micro expressions. They can tell when you were offended. Now, I don't know what the privacy is around this, Nick. And I don't know if anyone that was watching these Legendary movies that showed up in this report knew this was happening. I'm sure they weren't individualized by name. So maybe it's not a huge deal privacy wise, but one, I'd be long on Legendary making great movies because they, I wouldn't be shorting them because they have an incredible advantage over anyone doing it the old school way, like we did with our films several years ago, which was screen it a bunch of times and use a Google form to have people fill out a survey and then decide whether or not you're going to take you aggregate the number one or number two comment and then decide, are you going to really cut those scenes or not, or make changes?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, because, that's data for you right there. I mean, you can start with the AI and the AI is so cool. It's just the data, because you can imagine it's like having a heart rate monitor on all of those people, right? That's what the data is going to show you. It's going to show you fluctuations, right, in emotion.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing. I mean, just so you know, they do that already in, like you said, that like the Twitter space, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever lots of people in the social world commune and communicate. Basically, they do, this, I guess it's sensitivity or sentiment. That's what it is. Sentiment analysis. And that's what they're doing. They can tell by the way that you speak how you feel. Right. So the bot understands not your facial expression, but how you text. Right. Even in 140 characters. Right. Even in that little bit of time or that little bit of space, they can do a sentiment analysis to know how you feel about a product, how you feel about a brand, how do you feel about a person. That exists. This is just another extension of sentiment analysis. I know that this type of analysis has been done for brands who are putting out new products, like shoes, for example.
Yeah.
Before we had the capability of using cameras to identify those facial expressions, they actually had people putting on glasses.
Yeah.
Right. And those glasses would be able to detect movements of the eye that suggested how a person felt about a product, like a shoe.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's on a smaller scale because it's individualized by the people wearing the glasses. But yeah, this has gotten to a point where now you can do it with a single camera, right? That can pick up on all of these faces and aggregate all that data and then tell you how they felt, and not only how they felt as a group, but that AI you're talking about is so good. It can tell you in the crowd which of these people and which percentage were women.
Yeah.
Right? Which percentage were men? Which ones do we believe were between the age range of 18 and 25 versus, 34 and 52? I mean, it's crazy how accurate these things have become, and then how much information, how much data they can give back to those, those filmmakers or those organizations.
And the more data they get, the better they get. They'll be able to predict.
And one would hope
they'll be able to predict, like, oh, throw out the girl and guy in row F, seat 9 and 10. They were fighting before the movie and are breaking up.
Right. So they're going to throw off our numbers.
Right. So their readings are invalid.
Right.
So it's going to be able to invalidate the reading. And it's funny because they're getting closer and closer to the marketing holy grail they're looking for. And when I was in college for marketing, in one of my classes, I watched a documentary they showed that talked about what the holy grail for a marketer is, which is to know what a 17-year-old is going to do next and think next.
Right.
And we're getting closer and closer to that. When I was actually 16, I worked in a mall for one of those survey companies, and I would offer you $20 to come and spend some time with me, take a survey around new products. And I remember one of the products was Mountain Dew. No, Mellow Yellow.
Okay.
And they were trying to change their brand to be more competitive with Mountain Dew. So before, Mellow Yellow was kind of like, it was like a stoner drink. And then, for guys that are laid back, gals that are laid back, they wanted to be more about skateboarders and X Games and things like that. And the thing I knew that the viewer didn't know is that there were subliminal messages flashing faster than you could see them, but not too fast that your brain couldn't absorb it.
Right.
Throughout the entire commercial. And then I would ask them later, how did the commercial make you feel? And then what they tried to figure out is would you write down the words that you saw that you didn't see, that your brain saw but you didn't see, on the form as descriptors of the commercial. I never saw the aggregated data behind that. I never saw like the end result, if the subliminal messaging worked or didn't work. I know for the handful of people I worked with on that, they had about a 50% hit rate where they wrote down literally the word that was subliminally put in the commercial onto the survey form. And we've gone from there to, like you say, phones, glasses, now this. And I think you're going to have Apple glasses and Google glasses come out, and the there is going to be the ads they run into your brain once you decide to wear their glasses all the time.
Well, I got to give you one real quick when you talk about AI and how it's going to be influencing or continuing to influence us and some of the things we have to be wary of. So a family member just sent me some photos, and these photos were run through New Profile Pic. Right. So this is this new thing that's out there where you can take one of your photos and you send it through this app, New Profile Pic, and it basically creates a cartoon version, right? Or not a cartoon.
I've seen some of those.
It is an oil painting version of the photo. And these things are wonderful. They're 100% AI based. Okay. 100% AI based, and they're great. I mean, this is one of those where it's like, man, you guys keep coming up with these apps that are competing with the human artists, right? And it looks really good. Anyway, so I see this and everyone thinks it's the greatest thing. Like, look how awesome this is, right? I mean, I've cartoonized some photos before, and I think it's really cool. It's a pretty nice thing to see. It's so clean, it's so crisp, it's awesome, right? And everyone else around me is like, this is great, and this is gonna be my new profile pic, right? It's the whole idea. And I'm over here like, no, there's something nefarious about this. You're right. Like, there's something I don't know what it is yet, but there's something there. It's like when they did the aging thing, right? They were just stealing your photos, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting here like, well, what is it? And I figured it out. So you just talked about how
the aging thing on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you remember? So basically, you just mentioned like when you're on Twitter, there's all these bots. You don't know if you're talking to a human. You don't talk.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're talking to a bot. Well, if you change your profile pic to this rendering, right? This AI rendering, which is no longer your human face. Well, then how easy is it for so many other accounts to now have an oil painting face that may or may not be of a human?
Right.
Right. So you may be interacting with an account that you think just used new profile pic to change their image. No, what you're looking at could be just a random AI generated person.
Right.
And that account is actually a bot.
Right.
Right. So the more you dehumanize the experience on social by using these types of things, the more you invite the fiction that is AI into your world. Same thing with Snapchat, like all those little things where you can change your face and you can highlight and you can do all these things. You're now blurring the lines between reality and this fiction. So if I present to you, a face of someone, let's say it's a woman, and you're like, oh, she's just using a filter. That's why she looks so good, right? That's why she's flawless.
Yeah.
No, it's a bot, right? This is not a human, but you can't tell.
Yeah.
Right. Because we keep blurring those lines between reality and fiction. And when I saw this new profile pic thing, I was like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So now the people who created this can work with their partners who are going to create all these fake accounts that can leverage AI to influence you on the, social media platform of your choice. And you think you're talking to a real person. Oh, such a genius.
Yeah. So two things on that. One, I've mentioned this website before, but it's been a while. I encourage everyone to go out to the website, thispersondoesnotexist.com, or maybe it's .org, but it's thispersondoesnotexist.com or .org, and just wait and just sort of scroll through the photos and just have your mind blown. The other thing is there's a book, and I want to say it's by Milan Kundera, and it's called Life is Elsewhere. And I think it speaks to the human condition of wanting to be someone else. Always. Life is always better outside of your actual life. And it's a beautiful story. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And it speaks to that. And I remember when MySpace, what's up, Tom? I remember when MySpace came out, and I immediately understood the gravitas of it, because it was like the guy, I knew who he was in real life. And then when I saw his online profile, so this is pre-AI, pre all this stuff, he was able to be someone else. What I recognized in that moment is, oh, this online profile is the person he wanted to be. It's who he wished he would have become, or is aspiring to be still, and it's working towards that. Mm-hmm. Because none of the things were true. So like college graduate, he didn't go to college. Said he made X amount of dollars a year. He made no dollars a year. Like it said proud father. No. Like deadbeat dad, actually. Like not taking care of his kids. Like, which by the way, I always love when a girl say, he's a good dad. He takes care of his kids. I'm like, he's supposed to.
He's supposed to, yeah.
Foundational.
Talking about
like step one.
No praise.
Bragging on that man for
right.
taking care of his kids.
His kids. Underline, underscore, italicized.
Come on now.
Yeah.
All right. So we need to take on some listener questions, Nick. It's time for listener questions.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome to our new segment.
There it is. It's true. It's true. We're trying to knock them out. Yeah.
We have a couple here. This is an interesting one. Okay, so the question is, we have a couple of scheduled meetings with streaming services execs. So executives at streaming services. What should we prepare or bring with us to these meetings? Nick, would you like to dive in on this first?
Yeah, I can jump in. I'd say one of the first things that actually comes to my mind is, at a minimum, electronic press kit, EPK. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily have to, it's not like have to be a multi-page thing. It could be a one pager. But I think, this is actually one of the things that you had mentioned to me about, when you're going out to do a pitch, and we've been on pitch panels before, we'll be on more in the future. You want to make a statement and you want them to leave there, the executives remembering you. Mm-hmm. And I know that in the panels that we've been in, we're kind of waiting for the filmmakers to give us something.
Yep.
Right. Because at some point, like if you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 people you're going to see, I have to be able to recall you later. Right. Because I'm probably not making a decision right then and there, depending on the number of people and the environment that we're in. So I need something. To reference. And I think for me, an electronic press kit is usually something that you might have, online, right? Again, it's electronic, but if you have basically a printed version of this and it's just like a single page that has the website, has access to other things, I think for me, that's one of the things you have to bring. And when we talk about the press kit, it's like, your bio, who are you as a filmmaker? It's not just about the film that you're making, but who are you and why should we care about you and your journey and what you can bring? Because as an executive, that you're not getting in business just with that film, but you're getting in business with that filmmaker. So having a bio that's compelling, having photos, right, that actually are good photos of you so that I have a good impression, later on, access to any projects that you have. So if you have a website that, you can go to later to see your work, I think these are some of the things that are just, and I was going to say social, anything that you have that's on social that's meaningful, anything that you have out there where someone has done, you have any press, if you have any good press on yourself, on any previous projects that you've done, that's very important to have and to bring to the table to market you to those executives. So I would say at a minimum, you got to have something that you leave them with outside of whatever your actual presentation is that you're going to provide to those executives.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what you're talking about is kind of what happens after the pitch. And so I'd love just to address the pitch. And by the way, I will be on the pitching and funding panel at Swift Summit on May 21st in Nashville, Tennessee. You can go to WIFT, so it's Women in Film and Television, Nashville, so wiftnashville.org to purchase tickets to Swift Summit. It's incredible, especially if you're a female filmmaker. You do not want to miss it. The panels are going to be incredible. There's so many wonderful people coming this year. And it's like, I think one of the top values, non-festival values you could purchase or you could attend. But in terms of pitching, in and of itself, the main thing is remember that it's a creative meeting, but it's a professional meeting. Like you're meeting people who can change your life. And they're not like you, right? You could be Lenny Kravitz, and that makes it okay for you to not wear a shirt to the meeting. But they're going to be wearing shirts. Yep. And they're going to be different types of people. And you need to recognize and sort of honor that, if that's not too strong of a word. So yes, that means bringing your collateral with you, but it also means making sure that you have your log line ready, you have your story Bible if it's a TV show, making sure you have a prospectus that's printed out with the first 10 pages, making sure you've rehearsed your pitch so that it's smooth, because at the end of the day, you're having a meeting. So there will be a chance just to talk amongst them and get to know them. It's really surprising how often you tighten up in that moment and you forget to be a human being. These folks just want to see a person that they can buy into, that seems relatable, that they know they can work with for a number of years, because that's really what's at stake. You're asking the streamer to marry you. And I know that when we've been pitched, Nick, it's like, okay, I'm looking for reasons to disqualify you.
Right.
because you're asking me to marry you, and I might find out after we move in together that, you don't shower nightly. And then it's too late because I'm already committed to you. Right.
Yeah.
So remember to be professional, be yourself, be a real human being that doesn't present a ton of risk, and make sure your pitch is polished. The last thing I'll say about that polished part, just to be more specific, is, anytime I've had to present to anyone, I wanted to make sure I included something that would make me unforgettable without being weird. Because you can be unforgettable, but be a laughingstock.
Right.
You have to bring something magical to the table. There has to be a wow moment. You could literally do a magic trick in your pitch if you need to, if that relates to your story,
right,
or your documentary or your show or whatever it is. But these are human beings you're pitching to, and they want to be wowed. They want to leave that meeting saying, that was something I did not know, or that was something I've never seen before. That's to me, figuring that out along with your pitch, critical. And if you bring everybody donuts, no one's gonna hate you.
Right,
depending on where you're at, right? Like, know your audience, but at the same time, if you bring everybody coffee and donuts, you're not gonna miss. Or if you cater lunch, they'll remember you for that alone. Like, oh, let's take another meeting with them. At least we know we're gonna eat.
You're gonna eat.
Right. All right.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna let me drop one more on the pitch real quick. It's funny when they talk about this, it's easy to get into the space of also like what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Right. Well, don't do this when you go there, but they ask like what to bring to the table. And I would say one of the things you need to make sure that you bring is evidence of partnership. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that you can't come there basically with your hands out, right? Hoping or expecting or wanting them to just give everything to you.
Yep.
Right. Because like you said, it's a bit of a marriage. It's a relationship, and that goes both ways. Yep. So you need to be able to present to them how you're going to help them be successful.
Exactly.
So whatever that looks like, whether that's, hey, I'm going to bring this type of artist, whether it's an actor or director or writer or, intellectual property, or I have a musical selection or a score, whatever that is, that's unique and that's popular, right? Whether that's a social media influencer that's associated with it. Maybe that's organizations that you've become associated with that are going to sponsor, you in some way. Whether you have some other platform that's going to help get your film out there in the world and get people noticing it. Whether, again, you have an EPK that's very strong. You've got a press kit and a marketing strategy and a branding approach. These types of things give the executive confidence that you'll do your part, right? That you will be part of this relationship. And that you'll help them be successful because you want to help yourself. So I would say that's a big one. Just bring evidence of the partnership and that you're going to help them be successful.
You absolutely nailed it. And it doesn't matter what industry. When I was in music, I used to think to myself, this person just wants advance money and just wants to be signed and just once. They have yet to show me a story about how we're going to make our money back.
Right.
Where's the ROI story? Same in film, same in books. Like when you go to publish your book, they want to know how you're going to market it. Where are you going to go? Are you willing to travel? Do you have anything that's going to be, encumber you? What's going to happen where we get our money back?
Right.
Like, this is a business. So make sure you come with your ROI story. All right. Second question here is, children's programming. Do you think there is a calling for new ideas this time in our world? I guess considering that everything is IP, they're wondering, can you have a new idea? Well, of course you can have a new idea.
That's right.
Yeah, of course you can have a new idea. especially in children's programming, because kids are so young, they haven't seen a lot of things and they haven't been exposed to a lot of things, and they're more open to a new idea, right? Like the IP is to be risk averse financially for an executive and to give certain audiences that are adults something they already know and are comfortable with, something they basically already agreed to.
Exactly.
It's like when you're in a good negotiation, it's really important to repeat back to the person you're talking to things they've already said, because it's very human to not want to contradict yourself, to not want to be a hypocrite. It's like,
right.
So let me get this straight. You love the X-Men, right?
Right. Yeah.
I heard you say you love the X-Men. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I said that. Okay. Now, what happens if I put Logan? What happens if I put Wolverine in the next Doctor Strange movie? What happens if I do that? Okay. Would that please you?
Right.
Well, it's hard for them to say no because they just said they liked the X-Men. So that's kind of, the idea around IP, but around creating something new for kids, it can literally be anything. Now, I should say this. You can also create something new with the IP.
Exactly. Yep, you got it.
So there's a way to make your version of anything. I mean, we've had 10 different styles of Batman at this point, right? And Todd Phillips' version of the Joker is completely different from all the other DC films. But it had to be, or it wouldn't have worked. And it made $1 billion. I cannot believe that movie. Shout out to Todd Phillips, man. Shout out to Joaquin Phoenix. A Billy on that movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, and I'm not saying that movie in like some derogatory way, like that movie. I'm saying it was brilliant, but it wasn't Michael Bay.
Right.
It wasn't Fast and the Furious. I mean, it was a think piece. Right. And it had some pretty somber, had some pretty somber moments in it. So I think you can have your own take on it, Nick.
Yeah. And I'll offer it too. So the IP game. So, you might have some people who are listening who are like, well, you're still talking about IP and, I can't make the next Batman movie because that's Batman and DC owns that and I can't get at that. I'm like, well, how about, we've heard this, was it A.W. Scott, right? He said, do the same thing, but different. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to admit, when Avatar came out, visually amazing. All right. Yeah. It was super stunning. I mean, and there was an IMAX, right? I think IMAX was like relatively new at the time. It was an amazing feat.
Yep, 100%. I watched it in 3D.
Yes, I'll give it that. Okay. But at the same time, I was a little salty.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed Pocahontas.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Pocahontas.
Okay, I enjoyed Pocahontas. So, y'all just stole Pocahontas. That's not cool. You know, come on now. We're all the colors of the wind. So, and the same thing now. And, my kids don't understand it, but, they want to watch Wish Dragon. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you talking about Aladdin? It's the same movie. Yeah. So, but the thing is that it's the same thing, but it's a new idea.
Yeah.
Right. They have, and the reason why you can do that is because it's, for me, it's like psychological notes. Right. These films are able to, sing or play those psychological notes that mean something to people. It makes them feel a certain way. So you can have a new idea that still uses and plays the same notes. Yep. Right. You just do it in a different pattern, a different configuration. Right. And I think that's what you can do. And I think that's what people should do. This is one of the things we've talked about before about filmmakers trying to do something that's totally off the wall, right? I'm going to do something totally different. I'm going to change it up. I was like, you're doing something so different that it actually goes against human psychology. That's what these films are about. They're about understanding psychology, right? And being able to hit people a certain way because it's basic human psychology, So if you go away from that, it could be a problem.
Yeah, and it's exactly right. And I should just mention too that there's so many sources for ideas that no one's heard of. Like maybe you don't have to, reformulate and reconstruct and recontextualize Pocahontas or Aladdin. Like we talked about books. You can read so many books. When I was songwriting, to practice songwriting, I would literally go to Fido, this coffee shop, Fido, and I would pull newspapers and I would read headlines and I would say, okay, there's the headline. Let's write a song about this headline. And that's somebody else's work that I would just write the song and name it what the headline was or something close to it and write the whole song around it. It was great practice for me to do that and to sort of work that muscle. Channel 101, where Savan and Sarah Silverman and Jimmy Kimmel and Dan Harmon all cut their teeth. There's a million sitcom ideas and movie ideas on that platform. It just sits there at channel101.com, I believe. It's like it just sits there waiting for somebody to do something with this crazy stuff. So you articles like New York Times articles, WAPO articles, LA Times articles. I mean, obviously, any place, right? Those stories are turned into movies on a regular basis.
That's right.
So
and they can be optioned.
Is kind of everywhere. The optioning ability is everywhere, and you don't just have to play the big boys game in that.
You got it.
That's it. All right. Well,
this is good, man. This is good as always. Man. Yeah, we do, bro. It's like. It's time to get some rest and, get ready for whatever the next thing is that we're going to be working on, the next thing that we're going to be doing. So, but this was great. As always. Absolutely. You're going to work on, better contacts. I'm going to work on emptying this bottle of wine. There you go. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm going to cork this thing actually. Yeah. But no, this is great. Yeah. We'll save a couple more listener questions for the next time we talk. And if you're listening, please keep them coming. We love these questions. We love to answer them. Let us know if we are getting it right in your mind. And if you have questions you want to amend to these questions at all, or even amend to our answers and come with new questions, that would be fantastic. We're totally open to it. You can do that at contact@bonsai.film. You can find everything you need to know about Bonsai at www.bonsai.film, by the way. That's right. Including signing up for our newsletter, becoming a true fan, and supporting this podcast, and just a million other things, blog posts, you name it. And you can reach out to me on Twitter at FlamingYourHeart, or just search for Christopher Barkley on Twitter. You can reach out to Nick at bonsai.film, and we'll be here for you. So until next time, take care of yourself. If you're out there, make something great for the world like we know you can and you're capable of. And with that, Nick, can you leave us with the credo? Yes, sir. Filmmaking friends and family out there, be better, be creative, be engaged. And thank you for listening. Nick, talk to you soon. Yes, sir. We'll do it again. All right, brother. Be good. All right, man. Yeah, you too. Take it easy. Peace. Peace. You've been listening to the Make It Podcast. To find out more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we're trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please visit www.bonsai.film and click Contribute. Contributions start at only $5 monthly. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. You can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film, and you can follow me, Chris, on Twitter at FlamingYourHeart. That's FLAMEINURHEART. And of course,
If you're looking to take a big step toward your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore a variety of offerings from keynotes and panels to pitch readiness assessments and so much more. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.